It's a great pleasure for me to introduce you to Susan Tainton.
Thank you.
And Susan's had an interesting career, survived life intact, having worked for both Pepsi and Coca-Cola. And I wonder if you just tell us a bit about your career, how things started.
Quite perversely actually. I used to work for GSK and I worked in the pharmacological side of things, and a colleague broke his leg and I was asked to cover for him briefly and stayed there. So from GSK I worked for Diageo, Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, with a few little stops in independence in between.
Right. And now you spend your time with that knowledge that you gleaned consulting.
Absolutely. So people pay me for what I've learned being paid by other people.
The consultant's consultant, I hear.
Absolutely.
And you expressed to me some interesting ways that you use iMA as an iMA high yellow practitioner.
Very much so. High yellows are prevalent in innovation. They're quite strong in marketing, but at the end of the day, it's often the board members that make the decision as to what gets launched and what doesn't. And when, just to use an example, in a recession, you want to launch a super premium product, they tend to be a little reticent and look at you as if you've kind of lost the plot. So using iMA and understanding high reds and understanding their language and what's going to give them that moment of magic, I'm able to turn that around and convince them that I do actually know what I'm talking about.
So iMA in that high level way is you use it to effectively communicate.
Oh, absolutely. It's another tool in the toolbox, but it's a very powerful tool. And it's almost like a weapon because you can go on the attack with it.
You can inflict.
My will upon these hapless board members, absolutely.
Well, you're not the first to have told me that, actually, so I'm a believer. How did you discover iMA?
That's down to James, I'm afraid, and eAcademy. He sent me an invitation, sent me a link to take the test. I discovered I was a high yellow. I'm guessing that was probably no surprise to anybody who knew me, but it was quite a surprise to me. And there were all sorts of things that really started to resonate. And then I start looking at other people thinking, you're not like me. What makes you different? And then I started reading a bit more about it. And as I got into it more and more, James said, hang on a minute, maybe we should go a bit deeper into this. And therefore invited me to become a practitioner, at which point this whole new world opened up and gave me all these tools. And I even inflict it on my son and husband, so it's very, very useful.
I've never heard of it being used as an infliction tool, but I completely understand what you mean because...
Husband's a high red, son's a high blue. Being a high yellow means I sit in the middle.
Well, I have a family of high yellows, and I have some very interesting experiences as a result of since becoming iMA Practitioner myself. As the other interesting thing that you said there, James invited you to become an iMA Practitioner.
Absolutely.
There aren't thousands of iMA practitioners out there. We're definitely in double digits, a growing community, although there are tens of thousands who have answered the questionnaire and know their colour. And it seems to me that the people who have become iMA practitioners do appear to be what I would call a very high quality person. That, you know, what would you say characterises an iMA practitioner? Why would someone become one?
I think it's wanting to learn more. So it's not just going, oh yes, I'm a high this, sitting back and accepting it. It's having that natural curiosity to want to go out and find out more about it, not just for yourself, but the other people. So, okay, I'm a high. What about the high reds? What about the high greens? And going off and exploring. Also having that interpersonal thing, which I guess as high yellows, it comes with the territory. But to be able to then go out and say, wow, you know, I am a believer, I'm a believer, and go out and talk to people with passion, with enthusiasm, and say, hey, I've just found this thing and it's really good and I want to tell you about it and come and join us and all of that sort of thing.
What I've heard a lot is people who are in worlds like innovation need to communicate you've expressed it, their innovative ideas, because people who aren't sharing the same comfort zone don't share the same ideals, excitement, and don't necessarily see the opportunities. So being able to talk in their language, if you're yellow, they could be green, blue, yellow, or red, and you can quickly determine. Do you find you can quickly determine what colour
Mostly.
Yeah. So it's a visual process that you can use one-on-one. And I think that's one of the interesting characteristics of iMA, is that it's not necessarily take a test. As James puts it, it's about answering a questionnaire. Nothing is taken, nothing is lost, and it's not a test. There's no fail or pass. Answering questions simply delivers a result. Being able to visually recognize it and use it one-to-one, at board level the way you are, have used it, is very powerful. And it's the way that I see a lot of people using it, particularly in sales. But in area of innovation, which of course to some degree is sales, you've got to sell that new product in. Otherwise you've spent that time and effort, money, innovating new products for really what would be the current market, otherwise you wouldn't have done it. And then finally it comes down to a decision, someone on the board, about whether you go ahead or not because of a whim. That's an expensive decision that they make, and an expensive loss if you don't make that sale, i.e. they don't agree with you and go ahead and launch that product. And to get to that point is, well, expensive.
Yes.
For the company and for you in time and effort, and disappointing if, having carried out the task of the board, innovated the new product. But you told me also of some very well-known innovations. Smirnoff Ice?
Yes.
That sounds like an interesting one. Can you give us a short case study on that?
This came out of, obviously, the Two Dogs and the Hooch, which was very successful, and then the bubble burst. Smirnoff tried to get into it with Moscow Mule.
Okay.
Very small, very niche, didn't really do something, wanted something mainstream. So...
You sure we can talk about this?
Basically, got a bunch of marketing people in a room with a whole load of supermarket ingredients, including fruit, fizzy soft drinks, and of course, Smirnoff, and let them loose.
Right.
They came up with something which was an interesting mixture, which I then had to take away and turn into a real living product that would run down a factory line without causing them too much grief, or have my head on a spike because it was too complicated. And that would be marketable, palatable, consumable, sessionable. So you don't just want one and think, actually, that's enough. You can actually drink 2, 3, and as many as is responsible to drink. Bear in mind, it's alcohol, and one has to be ethical about these things. So, you know, one has to be responsible when drinking. So it is sessionable. And then it was all about saying, okay, marketing have come up with this. There is the opportunity. Now, how the hell do you convince the board that this is the right product to launch, given Moscow Mule is just bumbling along at the bottom?
Okay, so their experience was not exactly hot.
Yeah.
And you're coming along with something new.
Yes.
And, well, are they saying, well, fix that one before you give me a new one?
Not quite, but it's that bubble's burst, why should we try and fill the hole it's left?
Okay.
And that then you have to use your high level creativity with a bunch of high green bean counters and the high red dominant board members to say, that bubble's burst, but there's a whole new hole that we can fill, and it isn't just another bubble. Proof is, ice is still on the market. There are many copies now.
Yes.
This
market
is going
leader
to be
in its
good.
sector.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, it's citrus, it's clean, it's crisp, it's got a huge brand name behind it. Why not do it?
Yes.
And actually turn it around and say, well, why not do it? Tell me why we shouldn't do this. And of course, you throw that gauntlet down to a high red, and immediately it's like, what do you mean, why shouldn't we do it? We're Smirnoff, of course we're going to do it. And off they go.
I like your style, as they say. Yeah, okay, I get that. Okay, well, a very, probably a very simplistic explanation for what was quite a nerve-wracking process.
It was 18 months, right, so I distilled into 18 seconds or so, yeah, but okay. Yeah.
Right, I'm glad I pointed that out. Right. The future. You're still an iMA, after all this time, you're still an iMA believer.
Absolutely.
You haven't been put off. James has tried everything. You're still an iMA believer. How do you think, how's the future for iMA in your opinion? How are you going to use it?
I'm using it all the time, to be honest. When I'm talking to potential new clients, I'm immediately trying to identify their colour and then use the language of their colour to convince them I'm on their side.
Yeah.
When I'm negotiating with people for specific contracts or specific tenders, I'm again using their colour to say, look, yes, I know you're saying it's only a 3-day, but actually, realistically, it's going to take 5, and this is why it needs to be 5. But I will use their language rather than mine in terms of their colours, but also to help people understand things. So often I'm in with a bunch of innovators like marketing and who, like, you have to herd cats, right. But recognising most of them are high yellows and trying to keep the high yellows on a constrained path in terms of time and focus.
Yes.
Being a high yellow myself, I fully understand that toy over there looks really interesting, and actually keeping them focused is much easier knowing most of them are high yellows.
The shiny new toy.
And it grows. I mean, the minute anybody gets hold of iMA, they can see it, they can understand it. It is very easy to understand. As a practitioner, to put it into practice is just fantastic.
It's a dream, isn't it? I mean, it's very satisfying. And it's almost any problem that presents itself, there's a solution in the box.
Yes.
And you're never really scraping the bottom somehow. It's very deep, isn't it? And so flexible.
And even domestically as well, because now my husband knows he's a high red and I'm a high yellow. Yes. He knows not to be high red with me.
Right. Is there any chance of him becoming an iMA practitioner?
Maybe.
It's brewing, is it?
Possibly.
All right. Well, Susan, that was really, really insightful. Thanks very much for the opportunity to discuss your career and how you've used iMA. I'm really looking forward to us having another conversation and hearing about other successes that you have, and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
No, thank you.